Hello, I'm Heather. Sticking with the theme from week one, I will be discussing a retelling of U.S. history to include Indigenous voices. Indigenous history is essential to understanding the evolution of modern America, and the sources I select this week reflect that theme. The first two articles were found using Project Muse. The first article is titled 1620 Interrupted by Catherine Grandjean and Sarah Schutz. They suggest that 1620 needs to be reframed, rearranged, and resituated in a way that challenges pilgrim-centric mythologies, restores indigenous histories, and invites scholarly reflection on the early 17th century's long legacy. Activism in the community and in scholarship has challenged conventional understandings of Plymouth in meaningful ways, but it still needs reframing. This entire period is a pivotal point in history, as the continent and the world would never be the same again, and it needs to be reorganized and acknowledged as such, but also removed from the mythologies and stereotypes that presently hides the reality of that history. The second article found using Project Muse is The Lewis and Clark Story, The Captive Narrative and the Pitfalls of Indian History by Elizabeth Cook Lynn. Her article is from 2004, the bicentennial of the Lewis and Clark journey. For the most part, the discussions spoken at that time captured the romance, thrust of adventure, and the clash of cultures that many white Americans early on expected would eventually unite into the making of a greater America, a democratic community that other nations would envy. Cook Lynn suggests that historians rarely mention that within a short span of 30 years after that journey, Indian nations of the Northern Plains experienced the onset of a series of traumatic and devastating legal, cultural, and physical upheavals that terminated tens of thousands of lives and led to political domination over tribal nations. Historical amnesia is one of the first pitfalls found in multitudes of history books about Native Americans, because these studies ignore the treaty-making relationship between sovereign nations, the United States and the tribal nations. Instead of discussing the history of Lewis and Clark and the aftermath of their journey in terms of the effects on indigenous people, historians often choose to write about how these two adventurers commanded a party of explorers, contributing to New World knowledge by documenting thousands of species of plants and animals as they searched for a route to the Pacific Ocean. The last source comes from the Oxford Academic Database. It is a book by David W. Grura titled Surviving Wounded Knee, the Lakotas and the Politics of Memory. This book explores the controversy surrounding the representation and remembrance of Wounded Knee. It presents two accounts, one from the Native American Lakota people and one from the U.S. Army. For the Lakota, Wounded Knee serves as the site of one of the biggest murders, where the U.S. violated its treaty promises. This view goes back to December 29, 1890, when the United States 7th Cavalry killed more than 200 Lakota ghost dancers, including women and children. In contrast, the U.S. Army views the event as a battle and not a massacre. To them, Wounded Knee represents the site where the struggle between civilization and savagery came to an end. Grura argues that Wounded Knee serves as a window into larger debates over how the U.S. government's conquest of indigenous people should be remembered. These three sources show that it's important to remove the mythology and include indigenous voices into the narrative so that we can better understand American history and the evolution of modern America. Historians have already begun this process, but there is still work to be done. Thank you.